Good morning students. Today's video we will study the light reflection and refraction chapter part 2. That is, in this video we will study the refraction part of this chapter. Previous video we have studied the reflection part. So in this video we will be completing what is refraction, laws of refraction, refractive index, refraction through spherical lenses and parts of spherical lenses, image formed by spherical lenses, lens formula and linear magnification, and lastly the power of the lens. So let's get started. Refraction of light. So what is this refraction of light means? Refraction of light means it is the bending of light at the interface of two different mediums due to the change in speed of light. Have you ever imagined how light will bend? You have already heard that, and we people are commonly hearing that light always travels in straight line. But how does a light ray can bend? If it is traveling in straight line, how can a light ray can bend? Yes, of course, it's right. It can bend, but not when it is traveling in a single medium. If a ray of light is traveling from one medium to the other medium, at the interface of the two medium, it can bend. What is the meaning of this interface? Word interface. Interface means the joining point of the two different mediums. For example, let us take one example. Here, as you can see, the middle line which is separating the picture into two different parts. Let us imagine the upper part of the picture is one medium and the lower part is another medium. You can consider any two mediums, like any two transparent mediums we can consider through which light can travel. For example, water, air, glass, water, or anything like that. So suppose the ray of light, which we are calling the incident ray, is striking or traveling through the first medium, and then it is entering into the second medium. Now you see, where the two different mediums are joining each other, at that interface it's suddenly starting to bend. Why this thing happens? Then what is the cause of refraction, we can exactly ask. So the cause of refraction is the change in the speed of light as it goes from one medium to another medium. Because the light is having different speed in different medium, that is why it is bending. You can take a day-to-day life example. For example, you will take a glass of water and dip a pencil inside it, and you will see at the surface of the water, you will see the pencil is looking as if it is bent, but really it is not bent. So why this thing is happening? This thing is happening because the rays of light which is coming from the pencil are bending due to the refraction property of light. For your better clarification, let us see this animation. So here you see, here is a proof that light is always traveling in straight line. See, or the light ray is traveling in a straight line, but does it actually changes or does it actually bends? Why it bends then? See, we are taking here two different medium, air, water and glass is different mediums, and in every medium the speed of light is different. Here we have taken one rarer medium, another one is denser medium, comparatively denser medium. So at the interface of the two medium, the light ray is actually bending. So rarer, whenever light ray is passing from rarer to denser, it is also bending. Rarer medium to denser medium, at the interface it is also bending. So the bending of light happens just because the change of speed of light as it travels from one medium to another medium, which is the real cause of refraction. Now the question arises, what is this medium? Means I told you one is denser medium, another one is rarer medium. So what is the meaning of rarer medium and denser medium? You see, we are having different optically denser and optical rarer medium. Okay, so for example, diamond and glass, there are two different transparent mediums through which light can travel, but one is optically denser and another one is optically rarer. So what is the meaning of it? This actually depends upon the refractive index. When I will teach you the refractive index, I will say more about it. So rarer and denser medium means one is optically dense, another one is optically rare, means one is less denser, another one is more denser. Next is laws of refraction. As in reflection part I have told you two laws, here is also there are two laws that is known as laws of refraction. Let us know first law of refraction. This first law of refraction is telling us that the incident ray, the refracted ray and the normal to the interface of two media at the point of incidence all lie in the same plane. And the second law telling us that the ratio of the sine of angle of incidence to the sine of angle of refraction is constant for a given pair of media. Or mathematically we can write the same thing as sine I divided by sine R is equal to constant. Here this constant can be written as also N1 2. We are calling this law as Snell's law, and this constant N1 2 is called the refractive index of the second medium with respect to the first medium. Okay, if I will interchange this one or I will write N21, then I can say this is the refractive index of the first medium with respect to the second one. Here as you can see, this is the incident ray, this is the refracted ray, this is the normal, and all are lying in the same plane. Okay, this is the first law, description of first law. And here sine of angle of incidence and sine of angle of refraction is giving us a constant. This constant is the refractive index, and this is better known as Snell's law of refraction. And this constant can also be written as N12 or N21, and this is given by Wilbur Snell. This constant particularly is the refractive index of the given media as compared to the other one. Whenever light is traveling from a rarer medium to a denser medium, it always bends. Okay, here one thing you must note: if it is traveling from rarer to denser, it bends towards the normal, and if it is traveling denser medium to the rarer medium, it bends away from the normal. This happens due to the change of speed of light in two different mediums. Now let us know more about this refractive index. So there are two types of refractive index mostly. One is absolute refractive index, another one is relative refractive index. So absolute refractive index is telling us that this n can be written as, or nm we can write it as, speed of light in vacuum divided by speed of light in any particular medium or any given medium, or this can be written as c divided v by v. This c stands for the speed of light in vacuum and v stands for speed of light in a particular medium. And this c value, as we have already know, this c value is 3 into 10 to the power 8 meter per second. When a beam of light passes from one medium to the other medium, the refractive index of medium 2 with respect to medium 1 is called the relative refractive index, and it can be written as N21 or N12. N21 means speed of light in medium 1 divided by speed of light in medium 2, or this you can say that it is the ratio between their velocities v1 by v2. And N12 you can write speed of light in medium 2 divided by speed of light in medium 1. So here another thing also, you know, one important thing, what is the condition for no refraction? Does this refraction happens always? Is there any condition or special case where refraction doesn't happen? Yes, there is. whenever light is incident normally on a boundary, then refraction doesn't happen. And when the refractive indices of the two media are equal, then also refraction doesn't happen. Means the bending of light does not happen in two different mediums if the two different media is having same refractive index. And now let us see, here is a table for you where the refractive index of different mediums are noted. As you can compare here, diamond, the refractive index of diamond is given 2.42, and if you will see here the refractive index of a glass, okay, the glass is given 1.52. Now you compare the difference between the refractive indices of two different media. The glass is having higher refractive index, that is why it is more optically denser. That is why you can also say the diamond is also more dazzling than that of the glass. Next we can see the refraction of light rays through a glass slab. As you can see in this diagram, there given a glass slab is present through which the refraction of light we can show. Now the point to note is here is that whenever you are passing a ray of light through a glass slab, 2 times refraction happens. How? Whenever the light ray is entering from the air medium to the glass medium, 1 time bending is happening. Again, while traveling through the glass slab, again that ray of light coming out of that comes out of that glass slab, and there at another time bending happens. So 2 time refraction happens here. In case of rectangular glass slab, whenever a light ray suffers 2 refractions, one at the air glass interface and another one is glass air interface. Now let us identify which ray is called what or which angle is called what. As you can see in the diagram, the ray EO is called the incident ray. The ray O and M, or O dash, we are calling this one is the refracted ray, and the ray O dash and H, this ray is called the emergent ray. The angle I1 is called angle of incidence. Also angle R1 is also called angle of refraction. Then angle I2 is called angle of incidence again, and R2 is the angle of emergent. Or you can rather say here there are I1, R1, 2 sets of angle of incidence and angle of refraction, and I2, R2 are 2 sets of angle of incidence and angle of refraction. Now you will ask me, can we practically visualize what is exactly happening in case of a glass slab whenever a ray of light is striking on the surface of the glass slab? Yes, of course. So here is one glass slab. To conduct this experiment, we will first place that glass slab upon a plain paper, and we will draw the outline of that glass slab, and we will arbitrarily choose any point on the first surface or first line of the outline of that glass slab, and we will draw a normal. This is the perpendicular. You always know normal is the perpendicular drawn to the interface at the point of incidence. Now this will act as a reference line and reference point for putting the light ray. This is the normal. We can name it as also N dash or simply N1. Now we will place the glass slab again, and we will use a ray of light from a light source, a laser box or anything we can use, which is giving us a incident light. Now we have to put a cross mark or a point on the incident ray, and by looking at the other face of the glass slab, if you can see a feeble looking emergent ray is visible at the other side of the glass slab, and we can mark there one point also. See, this is the incident ray where a point was marked, and we have to now see how it is bending through the glass slab, and after that the emergent ray, it is very vividly visible. Thereat also we can mark one point. After that, what we will do, we will remove the glass slab, and now we will take a scale, a centimeter scale we will take, and we will start joining those points, and this will give us the incident ray. This one is the emergent ray, and in between this is the refracted ray. Now we can measure the angles of incidence also by using a protractor, that is the I, this one is R, and angle of refraction, and we can also measure the angle of emergent also. Here this is the angle of emergence. In my previous video I have told you about spherical mirrors. In this video we will study spherical lenses. So like spherical mirrors, we are also having spherical lenses, and those are of two types. One is concave lens, another one is convex lens. This convex lens is also known as diverging lens, and concave lens is also known as converging lens. As you can see in the diagram, here is this kind of lens we are calling the convex lens. Convex lens or converging lens, which is thicker at the center and thin at the edges. And why it is calling the converging lens? Because all the light ray which is passing through this lens, after suffering from refraction, all of them are meeting at a particular point. This particular point we are calling the focus point f2. Why it is called f2? Because lenses are having two focus point. If the light ray is coming from the left hand side of this lens, then all the light ray will suffer from refraction and they all will meet at the f2 point. Similarly, if you will change the direction of incident light, means all of the light rays are coming from the right side of the lenses, after suffering from refraction, all of them will gather at the point f2, and the focus point will now we will call, sorry, not f2, this is f1. All of them will gather at f1, and that will be another focus point. Here, as you can see, we have taken one spherical lens, that is a convex lens of course, and a light source which is a laser box, and laser lights are coming. As we are putting this lens, all the light rays are bending together, and as we will shift the position of this convex lens, we will see, as you can see, all of them are meeting at a particular point. That particular point is the focus point of this lens. Similarly, concave lens. In case of concave lens, as you can see in the diagram here, this kind of lens is also called diverging lens, which is thin at the center and thick at the edges. Whenever the light ray or incident light ray, they are passing through this kind of lens, after suffering from refraction, all of them are diverging away, means they will never meet each other at the other part of the lens. So in order to make them meet, we have to extend them hypothetically, or we have to extend them imaginarily to the backward direction, and thereat they are meeting, and this particular point we are calling the focus point, that is the f1 point. It is also having two focus points. As you can see here, we have taken a concave lens, and these are the ray of light, and they are suffering from refraction, and you can see how they are diverging away. For a better view, we can see the same thing in a dark mode also, and where it will be more visible, and all the diverging ray of light are not meeting each other. As you can see, they are just going away from each other. And as you can see how the virtual focus point is created at the back side of the lens, means all the refracted ray, they are meeting at a point which is showing us the focus point of this lens. You can compare the diagram and the practical view to know where exactly the focus point is situated. Now let us know about spherical lenses. Lenses are the part of two different glass pairs. As you can see in the diagram, the convex lens and concave lens both are the part of two different spherical surfaces, or you can say spheres, glass pairs. So you can see in case of convex lens, first face of the convex lens is known as the first spherical surface, and the second surface is known as the second spherical surface, and same applies to the concave mirror also. Each lens is having two center of curvatures, that is because the lens is part of two different spheres. Also, it is also having a optical center that is noted as O, and again principal axis. Principal axis is the axis which is passing through optical center and two different center of curvatures. Now let us know about each of the term in detail. First of all, the first one is the optical center. Optical center is the central point of the lens. It is situated at the middle of the lens. Then next one is, each of the two spherical surfaces of a lens forms a part of a sphere. The centers of these spheres are called center of curvature of the lens. These are denoted as C1 and C2. Next is principal axis. The principal axis of a lens is a straight line which is passing through its two center of curvatures. Next one is the principal focus of the convex lens and concave lens. First of all, we will know what is the principal focus of a convex lens. It is a point on its principal axis on which light rays parallel to the principal axis converges after passing through the lens. Similarly, in case of concave lens, we can say the focus point of the concave lens is a point on its principal axis from which light rays originally parallel to the principal axis appear to diverge after passing through the lens. So these are the focus point of the two different lenses. And next one is the principal axis. Principal axis is the straight line which is passing through the two different center of curvature. So these are the part of two different types of spherical lenses. Next we will study about the sign convention for spherical lenses. As in case of spherical mirrors, we have also seen some sign convention rule, or we can say it as the new Cartesian sign convention rule. Similarly, here also there are some sign convention rule. So they are like, according to new Cartesian sign convention, all the distances measured from the optical center of the lens, means if we are measuring any kind of distance, maybe object distance, maybe the image distance, and maybe the object height, image height, whatever we are measuring, we must start from the optical center of the lens. Second one is, the distances measured in the direction of incident of light are taken to be positive, and vice versa. Yes, the distances which is measured in the direction of incidence of light, means as you can see here in the diagram it is given at the left hand side of the both the lenses the object is present, that is a blue color arrow mark, and all the distances which will be measured towards the right hand side will be taken to be positive, and all the distances which will be taken which is measured in the left hand direction are taken to be positive, are taken to be negative. Similarly, all the heights above the principal axis are taken as positive and vice versa. Yes, all the heights which is measured above the principal axis are taken to be positive, and all the heights which is measured below the principal axis are taken to be negative. So these are all about the new Cartesian sign convention of spherical lenses. Now let us know the rules for tracing images formed by the spherical lenses. The first rule, in case of a convex lens, as you can see, the ray which is passing parallel to the principal axis after refraction passes through the principal focus. Similarly, in case of concave lens, as you can see, the ray which is moving parallel to the principal axis after refraction appears to pass through the principal focus. Rule 3. In case of a concave lens, as you can see, the ray of light which is passing through the focus point after refraction moves parallelly to the principal axis. Rule 4. In case of a concave lens, as you can see, the ray of light which is appearing to pass through the principal focus after refraction moves parallelly to the principal axis. Rule 5. The ray of light which is passing through the optical center remains undeviated, both in case of concave lens and in case of convex lens. So these are all about the rules for tracing images formed by the spherical lenses. After knowing those rules of image formation, we can trace images in case of different spherical lenses. First of all, we will trace images in case of convex lens. So in case of convex lens, as you can see, we are having a table where 6 different positions of the objects are noted, and accordingly the image position and the relative size of the image and also the nature of image is decided. Yes, this 6 different positions are at infinity, beyond 2f1, that is that center of curvature C1, at 2f2, between f1 and 2f1, at focus f1, between focus f1 and optical center O. So depending upon these 6 different positions, whenever the objects are placed at these positions, accordingly the image position and also the nature of the image, size of the image, everything is changed. Now let us know one by one each of the case. First one, when the object is placed at infinity, where the image will be formed. As you can see in the diagram, in case of a convex lens, whenever one object is placed at infinity, all the light rays that is moving parallel to the principal axis are passing through the lens, and all of them are gathering at the focus point. So in this case, the image will be created at the focus f2, and this size of the image will be highly diminished, means nearly point size, and this is a real image and also inverted in nature. Similarly, in the second case, as you can see in this diagram, second position of the object is beyond 2f1. 2f1 point means that is the C1 point, and whenever the object is placed between C1 and infinity, or you can say it is placed beyond C1 or beyond 2f1, where the image position will be. Now let us see. As you can see, the object that is on arrow is placed beyond to F1 point, and two rays of light are coming from the tip of the arrow from position A, and they are passing through the lens and meeting each other at point A dash. Let us analyze the first ray. The first ray, which is moving parallel to the principal axis, after refracting through the lens, is passing through the focus point F2. Another ray, which is passing through the optical center, remains undeviated, and both of them are crossing each other at point A dash, and thereat the image of the tip A is created as A dash. So what is the position of the image then? The position of the image is between F2 and 2F2. And about the size of the image is, the size of the image is a diminished one or smaller than the size of the object. This is also a real and inverted image. As you can see, the arrow is now created inverted image. Remember, almost all real images are inverted in nature, and those who are erect in nature, they are generally the imaginary images, or we are calling it the virtual images. Now let us move to the third case. This is the case when the object is placed at 2F1. 2F1 means that is the C1 point. So now let us see how image will be created in this case. So the first ray of light, which is moving parallel to the principal axis after refracting through the lens, is passing through the point F2. Another line, which is coming from the object from point A, moves through the optical center O and remains undeviated. Both of the refracted rays are now meeting each other at the point A dash, and thereat the image of A is created. So the position of the image is at 2F2, and the size of the image is equal to the size of the object. This is also a real and inverted image. Let us now move to the next case, when the object is placed in between F1 and 2F1, means C1 and F1. Then where the image will be created? Let us see. The first ray, which is coming from point A of the object, moves parallel to the principal axis, and after refraction through the lens, it is passing through the point F2. Another ray, which is passing through the optical center O, remains undeviated, and both the refracted ray are now meeting at point A dash, and thereat the image of the point A is created. And similarly, we are getting that the image will be created. What is the position of the image? The position of the image will be created beyond 2F2. Beyond 2F2, the image will be created, and now the nature of the image changed, that it will be a enlarged one, and it is also a real and inverted image. That is the nature of the image. Now let us move to the next case. In this case, as you can see, now the object is placed at F1. At F1 point, first focus point, we have placed the object. Now if we will be placing object at F1, the first incident ray, which is coming from point A, moves parallel to the principal axis, and after refraction it is passing through the focus point F2. Another ray, which is passing through the optical center, remains undeviated, but the notion is both the rays, even if you will extend them infinitely, they will never meet each other. Then where the image will be created? Then if you have to extend it infinitely, so that they will meet each other at infinity, which cannot be practically shown in the screen, but they will meet somewhere at the infinity. So the position of the image will be at infinity. That image of this object will be created. Again, the size of the image will be highly enlarged one, and also it is a real and inverted image. The nature of the image will be real and inverted. Now let us know about the last case of this image formation in case of a convex lens. Here, whenever the object is placed between F1 and O, whenever the object is placed between F1 and O, means optical center and focus F1, then where the image will be created. Now as you can see, the ray of light which is moving parallel to the principal axis after refraction is passing through F2. Another one which is passing through the optical center remains undeviated. But here also these two rays are not likely to meet each other at this part of the lens, but in the previous case they will meet at infinity if you will extend it to infinity. But this case, even if you will extend them to infinity or farther away, they will never meet each other because these two rays are diverging away from each other. So in order to make them meet, we have to extend them in the backward direction imaginarily, so that they will meet each other at the point A dash, and where the image of the point A will be created. And this is the only case where the virtual and erect image will be created. As you can see here, the nature of the image is a virtual one because we have imaginarily extended the two rays in the backward direction, and it is also a erect one, and size of the image is a enlarged one. And about position of the image is, it is created beyond F1 on the same side as the object. Yes, here this is the only case where you can get the image is formed at the same side of the object. Now let us know about the image formation in case of a concave lens. In case of a concave lens, we are having only two different positions. One is at infinity, another one is between infinity and O. So the object, if it will be placed at infinity, the first figure you can see, if the object is placed at infinity, then the image will be created at focus point F1. Why? Because here all the light rays are becoming diverging away from each other. So in order to make them meet, we have to extend them in the backward direction, and where at the focus point they are meeting each other, and there the image will be created. Similarly, in the second case, as you can see, whenever the object is placed at any point between infinity and O, the image will be formed between focus F1 and O. As you can see, one ray which is moving parallel to the principal axis is diverging away, and another one which is passing through the optical center is remaining undeviated, and the first ray, if we will extend it in the backward direction, both the rays will meet each other at point A dash, and where the image will be created. So the position of the image is between focus F1 and O, and the size of the image is highly diminished, or you can say only diminished. In the first case it is highly diminished, and this is the second case. Here the size of the image is diminished, and it is also virtual and erect. So in case of concave lens, in both of the cases, virtual and erect image will be created, and in the first case the size of the image will be highly diminished one, and in the second case the size of the image will be a diminished one. We are at the last part of this video, and we will be studying finally the lens formula. As we have studied in case of spherical mirrors, the mirror formulas, same here we will study about the lens formula. Lens formula, as you can see, we can write the lens formula as the object distance u, image distance b, and focal length f of a spherical lens can be related as 1 by v minus 1 by u is equal to 1 by f. This is the lens formula which will help you a lot while you are solving the numericals. And next one is linear magnification. Linear magnification is denoted by small m, and it is given by the formula size of the image denoted by h2 divided by size of the object denoted by h1. That also can be written as image distance v divided by object distance u, and aim is negative for real images and positive for virtual images. This point you must remember, because this will help you a lot whenever you are solving the numericals, that aim is negative for real image and positive for virtual image. Next we will be studying lastly the power of lens. So power of lens means sometimes you people are talking that my eye power is negative, I am wearing a negative power in my eye, so I am wearing a lens. According to that, my eye power is minus 1.5, minus 0.5, plus 0.5. So what is this power is exactly? So exactly this power means the power of a lens, the power of the eye lens you are talking about. So what is power? So power of a lens is the reciprocal of focal length of the lens. I will say it another time. The power of a lens is the reciprocal of focal length of that lens. So we can mathematically write it as P is equal to 1 divided by F. So this F stands for the focal length. So the SI unit of this power is diopter. We are writing it as D. Also, the power of a convex lens is positive and that of a concave lens is negative. This is a point you must remember. The power of a concave lens is negative and convex lens is positive. This is also help you while solving the numericals. And lastly, when several thin lenses are placed in contact with one another, the power of the combination of lenses is equal to the algebraic sum of the powers of the individual lenses. As you can see here, it is written P, or the power of the combination of lenses P is equal to P1, which is power of the lens 1, plus P2 power of the lens 2, plus P3 power of lens 3, and like that. Suppose you have kept very thin lenses with each other, in contact with each other, and you want to calculate what is this total power, or you can say the combined power of the total set of lenses. So you can say that it is just the sum of the power of the all the lenses. Hope you people like this video, and after the completion of this chapter, complete all the NCERT examiner, also all the exercise questions. Still, if you have any doubt, you can contact me directly, or you can inbox me also. Good day.